Dallin Hall to Flory Bidunga. This conference is losing a lot of good basketball players, but I think it's a good thing. Hear me out. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. We will open a myriad of big names are transferring out of the Big 12 Conference. Henri Veesaar to Keyshawn Hall to Flory Bidunga and Dallin Hall. But that's not the worst thing in the world. I can tell you why. I think you'll agree with me. Then Houston's defense and strength of schedule, going to be a lot for Duke to handle. Here's where the Cougars will win. And we'll finish with the Big 12 is actively killing the ACC. In 5 years, the Big 12 will have, in the same way that the ocean is overtaking Corpus Christi, the Big 12 is going to overtake the ACC. And I'm not really sure that that conference can do anything about it. Spencer McLaughlin will join for that. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. Dallin Hall is no longer a BYU Cougar. Henri Veesaar is no longer an Arizona Wildcat. Keyshawn Hall's leaving UCF. Langston Love leaving Baylor. And it's just not as bad as so many want to make it out to be. Why? Why is Dallin Hall leaving BYU? The guy who's played 100 games for the Cougars, the guy who's like, I bleed blue, the three letters are huge for him. He was on the podium with Mark Pope 2 years ago in March Madness. He was the guy you wanted to hear from. Dallin Hall doesn't want to play for BYU anymore. Henri Veesaar doesn't want to play for Arizona anymore. Langston Love doesn't want to play for Baylor. So do you want that player on your team? And we coddle a lot. Like Dallin Hall in his own right has been a hero at BYU and someone that fans have loved. And yeah, wish him the best of luck. Langston Love, I wish you the best of luck. Flory Bidunga, even though you weren't in Kansas that long, I wish you the best of luck. But you're not a BYU Cougar anymore. Like, you can say that this guy's always a Baylor Bear, maybe, and maybe he got a degree there, right? But next year he's going to wear South Carolina across his chest, Missouri across his chest. He's going to wear Colgate across his chest for all I know. He's not going to represent BYU or Kansas or UCF. And if I have a player on my team, if I have a player in the program that I'm a fan of, and they don't want to be there anymore, go. I don't think it's a sign for Scott Drew and Baylor that the ship is sinking, or for BYU that Kevin Young's ship is sinking, or that even in the Bill Self era that Kansas has not found itself in a long time where they're struggling to win. I don't think it means that Bill Self is sinking. What it means is that kid didn't want to play for you anymore. Is that harsh? I don't think so. Why? Because they actively made the decision to say, I'm never wearing that jersey again. Maybe they'll have the quarter zip in their closet one day, a plaque on the wall, a picture blown up, but actively those players aren't with you. And for BYU, I think they're in a very distinct situation here. The era, listen to me, the era of Dallin Halls at BYU is closing. The era of AJ DeBonces and Yegor Demons at BYU is opening. It's no more, hey, let's take this guy who by the time it's junior year, senior year, even when he's young, can be a catalyst. Let's take this guy and go win the gritty, hard way. Yeah, you're still going to be gritty. Yeah, you're still going to do it the hard way. But now you've got players who are top 15 in the country, who are lottery picks in the NBA draft. I'm sorry, Dallin Hall's not that. This last season at 6.8 points per game, Dallin Hall wasn't necessarily a world beater. Played 32 minutes. His production, his time, his starts all went down. So yeah, he decided to leave. You know why? Because the window of Dallin Hall at BYU is closing. BYU has a massive influx of insanely talented players from the high school ranks and the transfer portal ranks. I'm sorry. I want you to know, had Jimmer Fredette transferred before his senior season, what would his legacy at BYU have been? I don't blame Dallin Hall for transferring. I don't blame any kid for transferring. Sure, you did what was best for you. But what we have to understand is, hey, look, best of luck at your next location. You're not a BYU Cougar anymore. You don't wear the jersey. You wear somebody else's jersey. Is that harsh? Did you give us a good 3 years? Maybe. But it wasn't right. For whatever reason, whether that was the kid or the school. Henri Veesaar, it wasn't right. For whatever reason, the kid or the school. For Langston Love, and with some of these, maybe if Langston Love had left 2 years ago, this would have saved everybody a lot of heartache, a lot of headache, just a lot of stress. Maybe this would have worked out great. Keyshawn Hall leaving UCF is the one that I circle on. I'm like, shoot. I still trust that Bill Self's going to be fine. I still trust that nothing's going to change for Arizona. that BYU is going to be elite next season, that Baylor is once again going to the NCAA tournament. For UCF and Johnny Dawkins, you just lost the guy, man. You just lost a dude. 19 points per game this year, 7 rebounds, an insane catalyst for that team to win when they did win, and he's gone. For a lot of you in the conference, though, who are losing your players, okay, great. There is the door. If you want to go, if you don't want to play here, I don't want to make you play here. This reminds me of the situation where the Wisconsin kid in football decided to go to Miami, and Wisconsin said, nope, you signed a 2-year deal with us. You got to stay. If you're trying to actively quit your job, I, the employer, am not going to say, nope, I'm handcuffing you to your desk. Do good work. Because you're not going to do good work. You don't want to be there. Is Dallin Hall leaving BYU to find a better opportunity? Is Henri Veesaar leaving Arizona to find a better opportunity? An offense that fits him better, a defensive system that fits him better? Is Langston Love or Flory Bidunga, are they going to find better opportunities, better places to grow? For Bidunga, can he find more production at VCU or at Arkansas or at North Carolina? Sure, but I don't think that that's an excuse or a crux for you to say, well, they did what was right for them. And now I wish them all the success in the world, and I can't wait to root for them, and they'll always be a Kansas Jayhawk. No, they're actually not a Kansas Jayhawk right now. They signed a piece of paper. They told the world, I'm actively not that thing. I did this same segment when football season's portal opened for a Utah kid who left Utah and put a Utah man I am. No, you're not, actually. You're leaving that. I'll always be a Ute. Actually, no. You are telling me you are signing reams of paperwork stating I do not want to be that thing anymore for whatever reason. And now we're in an era where we want to coddle these players. Oh, thank you so much. Sure. Yes, thank you for your 3 years. You'll always be a Baylor Bear. Actually, you're not anymore. You're gone. And part of you leaving is probably for money. Like when I left ESPN, when I left the ESPN radio pipeline, I'm always an ESPN man. Always ES. Nope. I don't represent those 4 letters anymore. I work for someone else now. Did they wish me the best of luck? No doubt. Do I get a paycheck from them? Mm-mm. Why? Better opportunities. Felt like I could grow more elsewhere. Am I at fault for that? But should I be to blame? I don't know. But do they have to, from now on, be like, well, you're always an ESPN man? No, actually, I'm not. I left. We signed the paperwork here. And maybe you feel like it's different because you've watched them hit big shots. You watched Dallin Hall do crazy things for BYU, sure. But again, I cannot emphasize enough. These players have, for whatever reason, chosen to not play for you anymore. And the era of Dallin Hall at BYU is closing. The era of Yegor Demon is opening. Which do you want? Richie Saunders is still there. Like the Jimmer Fredette's can still be there. The Dallin Halls, not so much. He'll be great at Utah State, though. He'll be great at Utah. That's not what BYU's doing right now. Keyshawn Hall wants to play in the NBA. He'll be great at North Carolina. He'll be great at Kansas. He'll be great at Arkansas with John Calipari or St. John's, wherever he wants to go. Henri Veesaar, going to be great wherever he goes. 13 points against Duke. Helped keep Arizona in it against Duke. Langston Love will be hurt wherever he goes. Flory Bidunga could be a lottery draft pick next year. Grows up for a year, could be a lottery draft pick. But those guys don't play in the Big 12 anymore. They don't play for you anymore. Do I wish them luck? Sure. But you're always a Jayhawk. No, actually, you're not. Again, you're wearing a jersey that is not that anymore, telling the world in a game against the Jayhawks, you want to beat them. You want them to lose. It's not what that is. Coming up, Houston can beat, I promise they can beat Duke. And there's a way to do it. And I think seniority, strength of schedule, defense, they all point in the direction of the Cougars and Kelvin Sampson. This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. I was in the airport for like 12 hours today, so no idea how I'm this wired. Oh, yes, I do. I took a 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings time, sneaking up on you. Late nights at work, late nights watching the NCAA tournament. 5 Hour Energy gives you the quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I've been staying up really late with all of my jobs. 5 Hour Energy is there to help. Longer days, too. I get outside, tropical burst, 5 Hour Energy, bang. 5 hours, energy, ready to go and refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue, raspberry, and peach mango. Even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Give 5 Hour Energy a shot at your local grocery store or convenience store because they're everywhere. Stock up today. Stay energized with 5 Hour Energy.
But let's send it over to Tanitra and Andy, who are joined by Locked On Big 12 host Drake Toll.
So, Drake, before we get started, Andy and I have a question for you. So let me get this straight. Chaney Johnson can sub in for Janai Broom, do superstar work, and come to his interview with us on time, but you, Diva Sir, could not take the time to make it on time for Andy and me.
Look,
how goes it, man?
I'm on the Banana Ball World Tour right now. The Party Animals and Savannah Bananas just sold out the Atlanta Braves Stadium. We're going to do the same thing at the home of the St. Louis Cardinals this week. I'm on a weird schedule today. I'm in a hotel room. I've got an excuse. I've got a doctor's note.
Hey, and I'm just envying you. Just a little bit of FOMO, you being in my hometown, my adopted hometown of Atlanta. So thank you for joining us. But hey, let's just get down to the fact that you got some revenge and some avenge opportunities in this Final Four. And you know that old saying goes, revenge is a dish that is best served cold. So how much is Houston's shot to avenge last year's Sweet 16 loss to Duke? Maybe some motivation for the Cougs.
Well, revenge is a dish best served in the Final Four here for Houston, and that's exactly what they expect it to be. And that the win against Tennessee it's what has most of America opening its eyes to Houston being a kind of a boring basketball team, honestly, because they like to slow you down, because they like to suffocate you defensively. I saw a tweet that said Houston is made up of 2 hoopers and 3 guys who could start for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that is the way that Houston conducts its basketball team under Kelvin Sampson. You know, Tennessee only turned the ball over 9 times. This wasn't just an egregious game for the Volunteers. The rebounding battle was fairly tight. Tennessee had 20 free throws. Houston had 4. So why did the Volunteers lose by 19 points? Well, they shot 15 for 52 overall, 29%, 5 for 29 from 3 because Houston's defense is suffocating. And that is what the Cougars will bring into the matchup against Duke. Last year, LJ Cryer was a massive catalyst for Kelvin Sampson. This year, he is all over again. He remembers the Sweet 16 loss to Duke. Cooper Flagg wasn't in the Sweet 16 last year. He was in high school, competing, getting ready to play for Duke. And I know that LJ Cryer, who has been in college basketball now for 5 years, has that chip on his shoulder of, look, if I can go lead this team, a guy who's won a national championship at Cryer, he was there in Baylor in 2021. If I can lead this team the same way I was able to help lead that Bears team, we can go into Duke with some wily veterans that know how to play ball, especially on the defensive side. Houston, with this revenge game on tap, has a bit of that edge.
Drake, the Cougs played a pair of really close games against Gonzaga and then the game against Purdue where they needed a last-second shot to win. Obviously, as you mentioned, that comfortable win over Tennessee to get to the Final Four, but how much do you think them being battle-tested, especially compared to a Duke team that really hasn't had those experiences, how much do you think that's going to help them with an advantage in this matchup?
It's such an interesting point you make there because we talk about Houston being battle-tested, but then they haven't lost more than one game. Only that Texas Tech loss in conference play since Feast Week when we were talking about games in the Bahamas. Houston's only lost once since then. So battle-tested, yes, but they haven't felt defeat. They're on a wild tear, one that the Big 12 has never seen before in just year 2 for them to be in the conference. So as much as you can ask the question, man, Duke's blowing out a lot of teams, Houston has really been in that boat for a large portion of this season. They didn't feel that tightly contested, hard-nosed brand of basketball until this last weekend of the Sweet 16. And when they met it in full stride because Kelvin Sampson is their head coach. When Tennessee pulled it tight, or when they needed a perfect set, an inbounds play under the basket against Purdue, Kelvin Sampson is that guy on the sidelines that I will bet on 10 times out of 10. John Shire, very good at what he does. Kelvin Sampson's been around the sun a few more times than Shire. In this matchup, I think I can lean on Kelvin Sampson to make the right adjustments to be able to take down a Duke team that is so good offensively. That Houston defense, number 1 in the nation, versus the Duke offense, number 1 in the country, is must-see television this weekend. And for Duke, who played a much worse strength of schedule out of the ACC that was down this year, and for Houston, who is playing against Kansas or Baylor or Arizona or Texas Tech, give me the school, give me the team that was battle-tested more so over the course of the season and went 19-1 in conference play. play.
Yeah, a team that's battle-tested, a coach that's battle-tested as well, and that team being battle-tested, kind of growner than Duke, as I like to say, with a lot of veteran guys. How do you feel that kind of experience or that kind of age may play a factor, maybe, and be a big role against these Blue Devils?
Well, that's what's different in this game. When we mention the stars of the matchup for Duke, you're mentioning a kid who's 18, 19 years old in Cooper Flagg. For Houston, you're mentioning 24-year-old LJ Cryer, who has played, a senior who has played in the biggest games in college basketball, who, again, has been in the arena, ball in hand, in the national championship game. And even a few weeks ago in that Midwest region, coming out of the Sweet 16 against Gonzaga, 81-76. A high-scoring game for what Houston does, and that's them showing you some variation of how they could win this year. Cryer is old enough and has enough experience in college basketball. He can look around the locker room with a bunch of other 22, 23, 24-year-olds and say, hey, guys, we're playing a kid who is a generational player, but was in high school last year. And if we can suffocate him when he has the ball, if LJ Cryer can handle the other guards from Duke and we can double or put extra pressure and make him uncomfortable early, what if on the biggest stage Cooper Flagg has ever played on, we can rattle him a little bit? Now, that's tough to do. This is as pro as you can get for a young kid in Cooper Flagg, but I know that's an emphasis for Cryer and company with Houston.
Appreciate the time, Drake. Enjoy Atlanta.
Always. Next time you ask me to come on the show, I'll be 15 minutes late.
Fair enough, Diva. Fair enough. Appreciate the time.
See you guys.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is where I go to make money. And make money I did on the Houston Cougars this weekend. With March Madness being here, FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Had you put $5 on Houston to win, you'd have gotten $200 in bonus bets. That's $200 extra bucks to even watch, like you're just watching the Cinderellas and who's cutting down the nets and everything with a little vested interest. I picked the Houston Cougars to win the national championship here going forward, even to beat Duke, and I've done that on FanDuel. The tournament game is happening so often as well. There's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use. When I win, I get paid instantly. Visit FanDuel.com to get in on the college hoops action all March and April long. And it's FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com today to get in on the action, the official sports book of the NBA.
Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12, who's here with me today. The discussion of who you'd rather be, the Big 12 or the ACC. I think there are two angles of this. Let's start with the conference survivability and viability standpoint. Who's in a better spot between now and 2030?
The answer is pretty easy, and that is the Big 12. The reason that's easy is because no active member of the Big 12 is trying to leave. So we talk about conference viability, conference livelihood.
Well, they stopped suing them in the ACC, to be fair.
Or your lifespan, yes. And the ACC in response in the last 2 months was like, you guys want to get out but cheaper? Well, it goes down every year. And 4 years from now, it goes down plenty enough that Clemson or Florida State could make that call. The reason I say that is not because I am a Big 12 truther, by the way, but not because I'm rooting for the death of the ACC necessarily, but instead, if you talk about viability, who wants to leave the Big 12? No one. Who sued their conference to attempt to leave already and got a settlement that ultimately helps them leave if they want to in 5 years? Florida State and Clemson of the ACC. So viability in the next 5 years, that question can be answered by who actively wants to leave, who does not want to be there. And you could also possibly add North Carolina into that as they expand with Bill Belichick and their footprint and that Jordan brand. And we know Clemson and Florida State aren't exactly happy. And from there, schools like Louisville or Virginia Tech or Georgia Tech are raising red flags saying, wait a second, why with this new algorithm that determines Miami gets a lot more money, do we get less money when we have Atlanta or great basketball or TV revenue out the butt because we still have viewership? So I believe the ACC is in a more tumultuous spot because the Big 12's 16 teams want to be there. And I know, we all know, you can't necessarily firmly say that about the ACC.
That's fair. I think that's entirely true. I do think what the ACC did was still smart to give concessions on the unequal revenue sharing, because you at least bought yourself time and gave them an option to see how they can be financially competitive, at least closer to the Big Ten or SEC between now and 2030, when all the conference media rights deals are up for renegotiation once again.
Can I say
yes? You can.
That also, I want to give the ACC some credit here. They can still add someone in an expansion like USF, who we look across the room in 2 years and go, shoot, that was a great move. BYU for the Big 12. 2 years later, we're saying, wow, the Big 12 got even more than they expected out of BYU. Maybe that's Memphis. Maybe that's an SMU who's already coming to the ACC. In 2 years, we could be talking about a much different conference, and they could pull the trigger on becoming the all-state sponsored ACC or the 5-Hour Energy sponsored ACC and have more money that way. A lot can change in 5 years. This is just as of today, late March. By the way, speaking of today, you've had a lot of guests on the show the last couple of days. I love the myriad you brought to this program, and hopefully you have plenty more today.
Oh, yes, indeed. Indeed, we do. Another 3 guests lineup today, because other people have great opinions and ideas as well. Not you specifically, but other people.
Not at all.
Do. Yeah, I bring you on for other reasons. I don't know what those are. They make me. No, I'm kidding. They don't. But so when I look at the Big 12 just from a football standpoint, also sure. I'll just throw this out there. You said, who wants to leave the Big 12? Utah. I'm just saying, if an opportunity arose, like, in all seriousness, if an opportunity arose for Utah to leave the Big 12, it would probably only be for the Big 10. But if the Big 10 ever decided, I'm not reporting or saying they are, no one has, but if the Big 10 ever decided we want another team, I guarantee you Utah would be on the phone begging to get into the Big 10. I'm just gonna throw that out there. But the other angle I want to look at this through, Drake, is the football. I see
it. Do you see it? It's the Locked On Big 12 title. Utah is leaving for the Big 10, says analyst. I don't know.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that on Monday's show. But I think that on the football field, though, I'm taking the ACC on the one hand, but the Big 12 on the other. I think the depth of the Big 12 is stronger top to bottom. I do think the ACC sneakily has some good teams in the middle. Now, would I like to see NC State and Virginia Tech elevate themselves to be on the Big 12's level in the middle of the conference? Yes, I would. However, what I've got in the ACC for the next 5 years at least, I believe, that I don't have in the Big 12, 2 programs that I know, if they are run correctly and at their best, can win the national championship. I don't have that in the Big 12. They're trying to get to that level. I don't think it's impossible. I think there are schools and programs that are trying to ascend to that upper tier of college football, but nobody in the Big 12 right now has a national championship in this century, and certainly not in the modern era. Whereas you look in the ACC, you've got Florida State and you've got Clemson, and those are just within the last 10, 12 years.
Sure, but then there's the conversation of what have you done for me lately? SMU walked from the mid-major level into the ACC and won the conference in the regular season last year, could have won the conference championship. So if the Big 12 saw the rise of a Cincinnati in year one, or the rise of even a BYU in year one or year two to win the league, then maybe we have a different conversation. Instead, for the Big 12, it was another power conference school, Arizona State, that took over last year, who had power conference resources coming from the Pac-12, whose remnants featured an Oregon or a Washington, RIP, or a Washington, right? So those schools already had great recruiting bases, great money bases from the Pac-12. SMU came in on its own dime and already went to the conference championship, won it in the regular season, was the best team there for 13, 14 weeks. So to argue the ACC is better at the top, sure, because Florida State has potential. There's that potential word that really doesn't mean anything if it doesn't pan out. Yeah, Clemson has potential to win a national championship, but they didn't even go as far as Arizona State because of the way the college football playoff is formatted, right? But yeah, they've done it recently. Florida State and Clemson have been good, but they weren't last year, and you can't say they're going to be next year. We don't know that. I could see.
Well, Clemson should be pretty darn good.
They should be.
I mean, they should be. They were not as competitive with Texas on the road as Arizona State was in a neutral site. That's objectively true. ASU was one play away or one incorrect call away from beating the Longhorns and going to the semifinal against Ohio State. But Clemson is returning almost their entire team. They did win the ACC. They were competitive with a really, really good Texas team that were runners-up in the SEC last year. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Clemson's a Final Four team next season.
No doubt, but I think you'll also make the argument later on in the show that Arizona State could be better than Clemson next year. That's not impossible. Sam Levitt's a top 5 quarterback in college football per On3, a national brand, right? There's a way that Arizona State is better. There's a way Arizona State runs the table, is a top 8 team going into college football playoff, right? So what I'm saying is the Big 12 right now also has teams on par with Clemson for next year, right? You know, if you want to be the next 5 years, even the next
for next year, sure. What I want, what I want to see from a football standpoint for the Big 12 is which program goes up. Arizona State flashed up, and that was great. How do they respond? And we're going to talk about the Sun Devils later on today's show. But where's the response? Where's the elevation to that upper echelon?
The programs you mentioned, Florida State and Clemson, have gone down. You know, like you mentioned Clemson going to a national championship.
Yes.
Then they went down, like starkly down. The
right, I think Clemson could be going back up.
They could be, very, very true, but so is Arizona State, right? So right now, we don't have on the field 2 ACC teams that are better than Big 12 teams, that we know we can say firmly, oh yeah, the ACC is better in football next year. So then 5 years down the line, what if Clemson regresses to what they were in 2022? We can't say they won't, because that's what we know of Clemson the last couple of years, is they aren't at a national championship level. Is the Big 12? No, but it's on par with the ACC. And then you add on the fact that Clemson and Florida State obviously aren't the happiest in the world, and I'd rather be the Big 12.
Is Miami going to enter the chat? Gosh, there's so many things that'll play out over the next several years. I tell you what, that conversation energized me like a 5-hour energy shot. Drake 12, that's just what he does. The Energizer Bunny here on the show.